just walking them helps me keep my balance. I have As I reflect on the day that I had my stroke, I think about how important a role my dogs have played in my life. At the time of my stroke, I had 4 dogs. And Dallas knew something was wrong, and he stayed right beside me the whole time. The other dogs, I could feel them coming and going from the room. But when my friend Sharon had called the ambulance to come, Dallas is usually the first one, whenever there's a noise, was the first one at the door or the window or whatever, but he never left my side. And once they broke into my house, he still did not leave my side. The other dogs all ran into the living room, and but the paramedics couldn't get to me because Dallas wouldn't let them. And he growled and snarled at them, and they finally got the long pole and was able to pull him out and put him in his crate. And they said the whole time they had him in his crate, he was fighting to get out, and they were glad it was a good, strong crate. And they were able to get me out the door, and the rest of the dogs just stayed in the living room, kind of huddled together. And my friend Mickey got here to the house and was able to let Dallas out. But after I had been in the hospital about 3 weeks, my friend Mickey was able to bring Dallas and Sassy up to see me. And I think that was a huge help to me, just seeing them, and it was a help to them too, because I think then they knew that I was okay. I think Dallas and Sassy came up to see me in the hospital a couple of times a week. My sisters would get permission from the front desk and load me up in the wheelchair and take me down, and there were benches outside, and Mickey would bring them up to the benches, and I would sit there and love on them, and they were so happy to see me, you could tell. And Dallas and Sassy were both, Sassy was a boxer and Dallas was a boxer pit mix. And then at home were Rascal and Boogie. And Rascal was a Shih Tzu and Boogie was a miniature Schnauzer. But after I came home from the hospital, my mother came and stayed with me. And we had got me a hospital bed and set it up in the living room. And Dallas actually jumped up in the hospital bed, and it was, pretty high. And he would sleep with me there. Sassy would sleep on the floor next to me. But, and then every time, when I would get up, I would have to get in the wheelchair. And Dallas stayed right by my wheelchair, no matter what I was doing. And then they helped. I would, after I graduated from the wheelchair to my walker, I would go to physical therapy 4 times a week. And I was finally able to move from the wheelchair to the walker. And I would walk in the backyard with all the dogs, and they were all so good. None of them ever jumped up on me or anything. They just walked with me. And I never felt like, woe is me. I was always determined I was going to get better. And my dogs played a huge part in my therapy, as I would walk them. I remember the first time I walked all 4 of them, I would take them one at a time, and we would walk for like 10 minutes down the road, turn around, and come back. And then, I would go to physical therapy, and the therapist would tell me that, I was doing so good. And I think it's because I was determined, and so I used the dogs to help me learn to walk better. And it helped me with the control of my right hand and right leg, because I would have to hold the leash and none of the dogs ever pulled or, anything. And that also helped with my recovery. 4 years after my stroke in 2013, I lost Sassy Girl to cancer. And that was very hard for me emotionally. And it was really hard for Dallas, too. Because Dallas and Sassy were only 10 months apart. So they basically had grown up together. They were Sassy was 5 and Dallas was 6 when I had my stroke. And then I lost Sassy Girl. She was 9. And I learned to take care of her. And even though my right hand didn't work real well, I learned to grind her food up. She had gotten to where she could only eat soft food, and so I would put some canned food in with water and put it in the syringe and put it down her throat. Well, I didn't have enough strength to push the syringe, so I had to use both hands, and she was such a trooper. At first, she fought it, but then she just figured out, I guess, that I was going to do it no matter what. And she would stand there and let me put the syringe in her mouth, and slowly, and I think because I didn't have enough strength, that it just pushed it out at the right amount. And I was able to keep her for about 4 months after they diagnosed her with cancer. And then after I lost her, there was a quietness in the house. I lost Boogie November the 7th of 2009, so I had only been home from the hospital a few months whenever Boogie got out with the dogs next door and was run over. And so that was a huge loss. So then when Sassy Girl passed, that just left Dallas and Rascal, and Dallas and Rascal didn't get along. So they pretty much just stayed away from each other. When I would sit in my desk and work, Dallas would lay on the bed next to my desk, and Rascal would lay underneath my desk. And then I brought in a little foster girl that I fostered until I got her adopted, which I ended up having Emmy around 6 months. And Emmy didn't like me, so that made it kind of hard fostering her. But then I then got Cowboy in January of 2014. I was fostering him. He was only 8 or 9 weeks old. And that having to take care of him and teach him different things helped a lot in my recovery too. Because by then, I still used my walker some, but I had graduated to a cane. But then I never did really well with a cane. The cane made me stumble more, and I don't know I don't know why, but it's like I couldn't remember to pick it up, and so I walked better without the cane as opposed with the cane. And so I was having to teach Cowboy how to go outside to potty, how to walk on leash, to sit, and I took him to obedience school, and the teacher told me, she said, that is one of the most stubborn dogs I have ever seen. Because if he didn't want to do something, he would just sit down, and he was not treat motivated, so you couldn't put a treat in front of him and say, come to me. If he didn't want to do it, you couldn't hardly make him do it. And the teacher, I wasn't really thrilled with her, but we had already paid for the class, but she kept telling me that I didn't need to adopt him because he was too much for me to handle. So that I was more determined to make it work. And so after the obedience school, and then I got him neutered, and then I adopted him after fostering him for, I think I had him for like 2 months when I went ahead and adopted him. And Dallas and Cowboy got along great. Rascal and Cowboy, not so much. But Rascal didn't really get along with anybody. He didn't get along with people or dogs. He was kind of on his own. As long as you left him alone, he was fine. Usually you think of small dogs as being lap dogs, but Rascal was not. He didn't like to be held. If he would be laying under my desk and I would accidentally touch him, he was gone. And if one of the other dogs didn't like something he did, boy, he went after him. He didn't care the size. He went after him. And so, with Cowboy being so stubborn and Rascal being so stubborn, they butted heads a lot. And up until I lost Rascal, him and Cowboy went at each other quite often. But after I had Cowboy about 6 months, a friend of mine had Audrey, and she needed to rehome her. And she asked me if I would take Audrey, and I said, of course. And so she brought Audrey over, and Audrey was just 6 months old. And so she became part of our family. And Rascal and Audrey got along better than Cowboy and Dallas did. Because I don't know, I guess Audrey just had more patience with Rascal or something, I don't know. But Audrey and Dallas did not get along. And so I had to keep them separated because every time they got near each other, they fought. And with me not being really stable on my feet, and I, could just fall, which I fall a lot, and I have since I was born. And I would just sometimes be standing on the deck and fall off of it, or just be walking across the yard and fall. And so trying to break their fights up, I got knocked down a couple of times, and that's when I knew I had to keep them separated because I didn't have the strength to break them up, or I was afraid I would get in the middle of it and unknowingly they would, one of them bite me. And since Dallas was older, and this was Dallas's original house, one reason I bought the house was for Dallas and Sassy because it had such a big backyard. It, gave them a huge yard to play in. So this was Dallas's original house. And I would keep Audrey. I would separate. There's a door leading to the hallway from the dining room and a door to the hallway from the living room. So I would put gates up there so Audrey would have 2 of the bedrooms and the hallway. And Dallas had the rest of the house. And when Audrey would need to go out, then I would lock Dallas up, take Audrey out, and so that kept me mobile. And then in 2017, I lost Dallas. he had a brain tumor. And that was extremely hard on me because Dallas had been my rock. Dallas was there for everything and helped me so much in my recovery. And he was 14 years old when I lost him. And then that just left Cowboy, Audrey, and Rascal. And then we lost Rascal in 2020. He had multiple strokes. And I knew when he had his first one, it was severe. He couldn't move. And Rascal was 14. And once we got to the vet, and that was during COVID, so you couldn't go into the vet with them. They had to come out, and it was late at night, so we had to go to the emergency after-hours vet. And I was sitting there in the car with Rascal when he had another one. And his poor little body just, by the time the vet got out there to take him back there, she said, he is pretty much already gone. And so I had to just leave him with them because you couldn't go in with him. But Rascal was really already gone by that time. And that only left Cowboy and Audrey. And Cowboy has a tumor in his ear that is cancerous. I got him on a program at Neil Vet, which they are an awesome vet group. They're open 24 hours, 7 days a week. And they're a 45-minute drive from my house to their vet, but it's worth it. And so with Cowboy having a tumor on his ear, I got him into this program at Neil Vets where they did this experimental thing to see if they could get rid of the tumor. And I took him for 6 weeks, and the tumor really did never go away. So part of the process of trying to get rid of the cancer was chemo. So he was on chemo for another 6 weeks. And the chemo didn't work. But after talking to the vet, and me and the vet both decided not to do surgery on the tumor on the ear because it would spread. So I put essential oils on it every day, which is, it helps, I think, shrink it down some. And both Cowboy and Audrey are 8 now. So, I hope they last as long as Dallas and Rascal did, since Dallas and Rascal were both 14. That'll still give me a couple of more years with Cowboy and Audrey. But just walking them helps me keep my balance. I have to go out in the yard and pick up their poop, so that helps. I, keep my balance, and it works my right hand. Walking them on the leash, keeps me exercise and walking them, and I feed them twice a day, so therefore honestly, I don't think if I didn't have dogs, some mornings I probably wouldn't get up on the days that I don't feel, really well. And so having the dogs helps me get up and gives me a purpose, I think. And so on the days that I don't feel, really well. And so having the dogs helps me get up and gives me a purpose, I think. And so I have to get up to feed them. I have to get up and move to take them outside to do their business or just to play. Cowboy really doesn't play a whole lot, but Audrey does. She likes to run in the backyard, and she chases squirrels, and so that keeps me mobile too. And I just think having my dogs has played a huge part in my recovery. The verse I chose for today is in 1 Thessalonians 5:11. So encourage each other, build each other up, just as you are already doing. Thank you so much for listening today. I know this video is a little bit different, but I have not been feeling well the last few weeks. I've had an ear infection, and so I thought I would just tell the story of how my dogs have really played a big part in my recovery. Thank you all for watching my video, and have a blessed week. Thanks. Bye.